Welcome back, everybody, to Out of Reese's podcast. I'm your host, Reese Shalvis, and we are with our co-host,
Devon Anderson.
and he's brought a very special guest.
Yes, I have.
Hello, my name's Elayna. I'm Devon's girlfriend.
So you've definitely been hinted at in previous podcast episodes, and now it's the actual reveal.
Heck yeah.
And it
Here
just
I am.
So before we really get into anything, I just want to say, pretty soon, there's not a date yet or anything, but we will be saying goodbye to our co-host Devon. Not yet. He still got one or two more episodes left,
Yeah.
but just thought we'd let everybody know.
Yeah, good times. But
Me and him just got into a really bad fight the other day, and I was like, bro, I'm sorry, I just can't have you on the podcast anymore.
no, yeah, that's typically how it went down. It was, over something petty, but we decided
Petty, bro. You smacked the shit out of me for dropping my water on your floor, bro.
Just kidding. But realistically, it's just more for better opportunities for myself and the things that I want to do in life. Obviously, I'd be heartbreaking leaving the podcast. I have so many memories here with Reese. Dating back to the previous season and this season, it's definitely like getting me all teary-eyed and everything like that. But for the most part, I know you're gonna do a lot of good things, and I'll drop in here and there. But for the most part, I'm still gonna be sticking around, but just in the shadows of everything.
Yes, sir. And you want to tell them actually why you're leaving, where you're going? Maybe?
Yeah. So for me, I got a job offer to move to Denver, Colorado. That I really, really wanted to take. It was a state that I always wanted to live in. Fortunate enough that this opportunity came at this short notice, but really didn't think it was going to happen, but it ended up happening for me, and I'm more than excited to branch out and learn new things for a different company, and I'm excited, and it's a huge step.
I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited for you to finally leave Amazon.
Yeah, it's been no hard feelings towards Amazon, but this is the direction that I need to go. So,
Dude, it's definitely gonna be better for your future in general.
I think also another thing to add is more just for my mental, like, I just want to be able to feel appreciated in all those aspects of work, and I felt like it was kind of declining as the months went on. So, for me, this was exactly what I wanted in order to instill my personality and work ethic into another company. So.
And I assume you're not leaving her behind in Utah.
No, I'm not. I'm leaving her behind. As the months go on, but we are still transitioning into a plan to make sure everything is all good to go.
Yes.
That's awesome. So how long you guys been together now?
What is that? Hold on, wait. 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months.
6
Yes,
months?
6 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Coming up on officially 6 months.
All right, here's a
Yes.
question for you guys. Honeymoon phase. Are you guys still in it? Are you guys out of it?
I think
I think we're out of it.
Yeah, we out of it.
Yeah.
Dang, that was fast.
Yeah.
I think it was
That
fast.
was a
Yeah.
fast
honestly.
honeymoon phase.
I
Although you
think-
feel better being past that now.
Yeah, because it give us like real expectations in our relationship, not just going off a feeling or a sensation
Right.
just for that time being. And I think with our relationship, one thing that she brought up is that she's not a fan of the honeymoon phase, right? And we all get caught up by it, and sometimes caught off guard when it actually runs out, and you're like, what is this now? And try to figure out what your relationship really stands for. But I think in the beginning, we kind of set those expectations without no hesitation. And, we both have good cohesion coming towards those goals and actionable goals, too. I think that's one thing that helps me, like in my relationship. Yes, communication, but also actionable goals. Is when I tell her I'm going to do something, I make sure I do that and not deviate from that, because if I don't, then it creates judgment and like all this other stuff that can spiral down to that.
Like telling your podcast partner that you're gonna show up
Yeah.
and not show up.
Yeah.
No, I think it's definitely interesting because I feel like a huge problem is when people enter the honeymoon phase. I actually have a whole lot of stuff on this, but when you enter the honeymoon phase, it's like life is so good. I mean, your productivity diminishes 90%.
It
You're
does.
like,
Yeah.
we talked about this in our last one with the money. We're just
Yeah.
like, yo, let me buy you this, let me buy you
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just you're like you're just like blinded by everything but them, right? And when the honeymoon phase ends, you know, I feel like that's where your true colors really show if you're going to be a good person in the relationship or not. So when it ends, if you feel, wow, I'm bored, like actually, who is this person? I don't know them. That's where it can, you know, kind of deviate into a either bad, worse relationship or just end altogether.
I think another thing is when that runs out, how are you communicating that, right? Are you just making sure your feelings are reserved and not speaking on it? Or you're like, dang, I got myself in something I didn't want to be in. And so how am I going to get out of it, right? But a lot of people run into those situations, and some people decides to be miserable, and some people be like, no, I'm not, I refuse to feel this feeling for the rest of my life, and decides to do something, right? But Elayna, if you have a different perspective from like a female aspect, I would love to hear that.
I think that the honeymoon phase is not sustainable. And I think that I personally think that the sooner you can get through that, the better. Because I think as soon as the honeymoon phase is over, that's when your like real relationship starts.
Right.
Because the stuff in the honeymoon phase,
it's all the movie stuff, right?
It's not real.
It's like it's like what you'd imagine a romantic movie to be. It really feels like you're living one, right?
It is. Everything's happy, unicorns, rainbow, sunshine. But it's just not sustainable. And I mean, I don't know. Real life is not a fairy tale.
Oh, not at all.
And there's so many factors that play into your relationship and how it works, and if it works and if it doesn't. And the honeymoon phase kind of blinds you to all of those things because you're just so happy, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I actually, so kind of going into our first section of kind of like when you begin a relationship and like just dating in general, when you're dating around, not even serious, just here, going on a few dates or even talk to someone for maybe a couple months. Yeah. Maybe it goes somewhere, maybe it doesn't. I kept having this question, you know, is like, why is dating so messy in the 21st century, in the 20s? Because we're living in the 20s now. Why is it so messy? And I had this thought the other day. It was like, it's because it's so fake. Like, and let me explain. So, like so growing up as a guy, I've been taught. This is what I've been taught, and this is the biggest contradiction ever. Yeah. They're like, man, when you're dating, bro, you just gotta, like, to talk to a girl, you just gotta be yourself, you know, whatever. I'm like, okay, yeah, let me be myself. And then they're like, but now here's how you talk to women. You gotta act like this. You gotta act like this. There's that keyword, act, right? You gotta act like this. You gotta learn how to act like this. So they're telling guys, right, here's how you have to act if you want to be able to date and get girls. Yeah. And it's been very hard like that because it's like, that's not being if I'm trying to be someone that I'm not. Yeah. Like, why is that what we got to do in order to properly date? It's just weird. And now coming from a female side of that, what would your thoughts on that be?
Can I ask for an example? Like, are you talking about you have to like treat a girl a certain way in the way that you act? Or like can I have like a little example?
So with the initial, when you're first getting to know someone, and even after you've say gotten their number and you're just texting them, every guy I've been friends with that is like talking to a girl, they're like, bro, what should I say? I don't know what to say. And like, oh, you should say this, you should do that, right? And so it goes throughout.
For the record, I never asked.
But most yeah, yeah, so you're like, I don't know what to say. What should I say, man? She said this. It's like we're so dependent on trying to think, how should I act in order to essentially keep her interested in me, when apparently being yourself isn't enough.
I think it depends on the person, right?
Right.
It's really hard because I believe that no matter what, I'm going to be who I am. Like, you either going to like me or if you're not going to like me, right? When it comes to that, you're basically lying from the day when you first started talking to that girl, pitting on something that you're not, right? Like, you're just saying, oh, all this stuff. Like, I had a friend one time, like, he asked me for a bunch of advice, right? Text a girl for him, like, did all these things for him, but that wasn't not who he was. Right. And when they got in that relationship, that was completely different, and they ended up breaking up, right? Because that's not who you are. So if you begin, when you start talking to a girl and you already starting to act and not be yourself, you already lying, right? from that point on, everything else is just a straight lie, right? It's not nothing honest about that. If you have to change who you want to be in order to get this girl, then maybe you should like not like realign who you like
oh,
or
for
whatever,
sure.
right?
And
You see what I'm saying?
yeah, and I think on that point with how you said it just didn't work out. I think that's actually, I feel like I don't know the actual statistics, but most relationships are not going to work out.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're younger like this. And I think a huge problem is as you get to know somebody, as the girl gets to know you, you know, if you're acting and like trying to keep her interested by being someone you're not, when you guys start to get serious and then she really sees who the real you are, it could be like, oh, this isn't who I fell in love with. This wasn't who I started liking. So then they're going to lose interest, start talking to other people or just break things off, you know?
I think, I agree. I'm going to let you talk.
Sorry. I know we kind of just skipped over my question for you, but go ahead.
It's okay.
My bad.
I was just going to say, I think that you have a very valid point of that it's the dating world today, especially in your 20s. I think it's different once you get a little older and more mature. But in your 20s especially, I think it's very fake. Because if you look around, we live in a pretty...
why are you looking at me like that?
I'm trying to, like, not just, like, look at one person. Yeah, I'm including everyone.
I'm just messing with you, babe.
No, so I think if you look around, we live in a pretty fake world, right? Especially with social media and the internet.
Oh, yeah.
The internet is, like, a whole different freaking ball game, and... like, you're expected to be fake on social media. Like, you're supposed to say, oh, my life is amazing, and you're supposed to post like the best parts of your life. But that's not showing your true self. You know, like someone could post a picture on Instagram like showing that they just had the most amazing day ever, or they just bought a brand new car, but their life could be falling apart behind that. You know what I mean? And I think that's similar to the topic of going on dates and, you know, supposedly or you're supposed to act a certain way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a similar topic because, you know, it all kind of aligns. But I think that's where people go wrong, is trying to be someone, like he was saying, who they're not. And all of that stuff eventually falls away because if you act like that, if you act a certain way in the beginning, you can't sustain that. You know, if it's not truly you cannot sustain that. So it's eventually going to fall off. And then, who knows? Some people, it might work. And the person is like, oh, I actually like you better like this. Like, I like the real you better. Yeah. You know, but some people it won't. And it's just not sustainable. So you just have to, even though some people say, oh, no, you're supposed to act like this. Oh, no, you're supposed to do this. Be yourself. And if the person doesn't like you, that's your sign. They're just not your person.
Right. And people, like, I feel like there's a lot of people, you know, men and women, who, when they realize this person doesn't like them, sometimes they'll just do whatever they can to try and get them to like them.
Yes.
And they just
be miserable.
Exactly.
They live their life in misery.
Now, I think it's a very interesting topic. I think there's a difference between doing, you know, being fake and doing what other people are telling you to do in a relation, going into a relationship or talking to a person and getting to know them. There's a difference between that and then knowing yourself and doing self-growth before and or in the middle of it and changing who you are, like actually changing who you are, not being fake about it.
But in a very positive
in a positive growth way. Yeah.
Yeah, because I definitely feel like if you try to change yourself for somebody, there's certain aspects I just don't think you should change.
No. Yeah.
But there's also some things that I think everybody could change and improve on, right? So, like, for example, kind of what you brought up earlier when you were asking how you treat a girl or just how to talk to girls, right? And I think learning how to treat a girl or learning how to treat a man is very important, because it's not necessarily about changing you on how to treat this person. It's about reinforcing the parts of you that can treat someone great, right? And or changing those parts, you know. So not necessarily a full revamp of who you are, but just reinforcing that.
I will say two things, is just set clear expectations, right, from the get-go, right, to
Right.
avoid any unnecessary time. Because I think a lot of people are very hesitant when they when they set expectations going into a relationship or going into dating, and then all of a sudden it doesn't even matter anymore because this person is like, oh, the honeymoon phase, just straight completely annihilates that. But you do have people that are more strong-willed and will not waver for nobody, especially if they're not considering any of those things that they set expectations for. But
Right.
I think just being yourself and setting expectations will set you up for the best success when it comes to a relationship. Not probably, it won't give you the ultimate success. Like it won't always plan out like you want. But like, at least if you go to that person like, hey, I expect this. This is my expectations. If it's not something you're interested in, let's not even try this and waste anybody's time.
Yeah, I think that if you set those expectations and like put everything out on the floor in the beginning, that will set you up for success. And then I think the rest of it just comes down to compatibility and, how you treat each other and stuff like that.
Okay, so I got to ask, on that expectations, I feel like there's definitely an issue with trying to set expectations depending on how the relationship is developing, right? So let me just give an example. Let's say I'm talking to a girl and she's someone who I'm starting to really like, who she is probably starting to find interest in me, but
Right.
things are going slow. At what point can you set those expectations or these certain boundaries without it seeming like, yo, I'm ready to start going into a relationship if they're not ready for one, right? Or like if say things are kind of going, if things are not going as fast as you like,
Yeah.
but like you're willing to slow down, but if you're like, I feel like for me personally, sometimes I feel scared to set the expectations and let her know kind of where my mind is in fear of where she's like, whoa, a relationship. Oh, that's kind of.
I mean, I think being upfront and honest is number one, right? Like,
Right.
Regardless, if you wait, that probably will be her reaction no matter what, right? If somebody knows your expectation is to potentially have a relationship at the beginning, they know exactly what they're working towards, not when you guys have went on multiple different dates and then you just like in the unsure phase and you're like, yo, what are we really doing? Are we just, paddling along across the river, or are we about to dive into this, right? But at the beginning, if we have that conversation, like after I like, I think we ask, like, even like on your first date, you can be like, so like, what's your expectations? Like, what are you looking for? Right? Like, if you just want to date, if you want to just hang out, like, what is it? And then we don't have to waste any time. I think if you allow it to pass that.
That's true.
Right? And you allow it to pass that without a, certain, objective or whatever, then you're going to put yourself at harm because now you're going to be there like, all right, like, we going good, feels good, but I don't even know, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't set those expectations in the beginning.
That's so true. And do you think that exact reason could be part of why dating is so messy as well? Because like there's just that lack of communication at the beginning.
Go. I think this is a great time to say what like the most important thing in a relationship is, babe. You know what I'm gonna say?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No.
We've talked about this.
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
Communication. That is all that relationships come down to. Like to the nitty gritty bones.
Right.
It is communication. Your communication will make or break your relationship. Any relationship, whether it's with family, friends, or a romantic relationship.
Right.
Communication is where it's at.
I thought she was about to say something else. My mind was in the gutter.
Oh my gosh.
Have you guys had any miscommunications where you're like, whoa?
I mean, yes, like it pops up, right? But we try to address those situations as soon as they happen.
Yeah.
And not allow it to transcend into the next day, next hour, whatever. We kind of like just come back and be like, all right, what was your point of view and what was my point of view? Try to.
Sorry, I was interrupting you.
But like, just try to find the common understanding for both of us, so we walk away with, all right, I see what she was talking about, and all right, I see what he was talking about.
And we're also the kind of people, I think that, well, I think I am a little bit more than you, but we like to address it right then and there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that alleviates a lot of problems, because I think the longer you let things sit and the longer you let your mind kind of wander about things, that's where it can get more difficult. Because if you have a problem, which I know everyone is not like this, not everyone wants to address their problems right then and there. Some people like to sleep on it, and some people like to just leave the situation completely, remove themselves, and then come back to it later, which sometimes that's good if it's really heated and stuff, but I think if your communication is open, I don't think you should really get to that point where it's so heated and so, like you're fighting, you know?
Yeah.
But I think if you have a miscommunication or a problem or something, if you address it as soon as possible and really like put all your feelings out on the table, I think you can work through almost anything. Not everything, but you know, I think it really alleviates a lot of stuff. But communication is what it comes down to. And definitely. I think that is like the main problem in the whole world of relationships.
I think maybe just the whole world.
The whole world, you know? Yeah. Because that is like the root of all the problems, you know? If you're not willing to share your full opinion and you're holding something back or you're lying about something, that's where the problem stems.
I would say another thing is what is it? What I'm trying to say? I would say unrealistic expectations too. That's another thing that probably makes people like very hesitant when saying expectations or anything like that because of the fear of the reaction, right? Some people grew up in certain situations that, you know, they're not wavering, right? Like, I refuse to sniff anywhere near this, so you better be meeting these expectations or it's not going anywhere, right? But I think it's a level, like, when it comes to setting your expectations, right? Let's be realistic, right? Let's, like, group around your, you know, status, like, no offense or anything like that. But I think that's very important, too, when going into dating, right? Like, if I go into dating and I'm like, yo, if you ain't making $100K or $150K, then we're not dating. We're not talking. Like, I'm not wasting my time with you, right? That's, I would say, unrealistic, right? Like, that's not, like, really should be a talking point at that point. But I don't know, like, or, oh, you ain't athletic? Nah, you don't. Or whatever, right? Like, it's some things like that people literally harp on for expectations. Like, no offense, right? Like, if you're not above 6 feet, like, whatever the case is, like, bro, they harp on these things. And when people waver or they be like, you know what, I'll give them a chance. But in the back of their head, they like, I could have done better, right? Like, that's something that I feel like when people do that, when their expectations, that creates that extra thought. That's just me.
No, I definitely think that's true. And kind of actually on expectations, I have a question for you. Yes. I'll get to that in a second though, because kind of back on the communications thing. Dang, I just lost my train of thought. I was like listening to you, and I was like, dang. Give me like 1 second.
Just give her the question then, and while you try to think.
All right. So, with like growing up as a girl, do you feel like not only were there expectations for how you're supposed to act when, say, dating or talking to guys, do you feel like you also grew up with an expectation on how guys are supposed to talk to you and treat you?
I think growing up as a girl, there definitely is some expectation of how a guy is supposed to approach you and stuff like that. But I also think it really just depends on your childhood. You know, I think almost everything comes down to your childhood because, like, for me, I grew up in a house where my parents were divorced, and I lived separately with both of them back and forth. Yeah. And so I didn't have a good example of how, you know, people in a relationship were supposed to act with each other. You know, like, so I didn't really have an example at all of how a guy was supposed to treat a girl and vice versa because I didn't have a good example growing up.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So, honestly, I think everything that I learned was from kind of trial and error. And also, I think when you're little, from movies, you know?
Oh, right.
So, like, especially being a little girl, I watched, like, princess movies all the time and, you know, stuff like that. So I had an unrealistic expectation of what it was supposed to look like. But I think growing up with a broken family really, really, like, my biggest goal in life is to just have a successful family, like just have a family, you know, that is happy, which, you know, I think every family goes through their ups and downs, obviously, and not every family is happy all the time, but, you know, just a generally good family, like
set them up for success, I would say, is the biggest thing. And not putting them in situations where we grew up, firsthand, like looking at those things and knowing how our reaction was, and trying to put, you know, the best environment and best father figure, mother figure for them. And yeah, I agree. I mean, we wouldn't be dating if we didn't agree, but
So kind of rewinding, because I remember what I was gonna say about communications, because I think this is interesting to think about. But I personally think that, like, when it comes to communicating, like what you should communicate, and I do definitely think there are things that don't need to be communicated. I think there's a spectrum of, like, on one end is communicate, like, gotta communicate this.
Yeah.
The other end is this isn't actually that important, and you know, it could be from anything to, oh, I'm gonna eat this leftover pizza in the fridge. That's not something you need to communicate with, right?
Now, be careful. Because if you have a wife, a girlfriend that's pregnant, that leftover pizza is definitely your life.
He's got a point.
Right? Like, I think some stuff, it's a way in which you communicate it. Like, it can be a soft communication just to make sure, you was aware of this. Or it can be a straight, stern communication on, like, something that's serious, right? But I think it's always important to try and communicate. Like, you can bring up non-negotiables, and then you can bring up negotiables, like, when it comes to communication. But leftover pizza is not one of them.
I mean, like I said, it's like a spectrum, right?
Yeah,
so there's definitely areas where it's really not important. Like, oh, I'm starting my laundry. Like, do you really need to say? Like, unless they're in the middle of, like, say, some important meeting and the laundry room's right there really loud, then you say, oh, hey, I'm going to start this. Is that cool? But if it's, like, other side of the house and you're like, I just want to start my laundry real quick.
Yeah,
like, is that something you need to say, hey, I'm starting my laundry?
Are you washing both of your guys' laundry, or?
I mean, that all comes down to.
That's what I'm saying. It depends, because, like, if my girl got to go to work, I'm going to wash her clothes. Like, babe, what outfit you want to wear tomorrow? I can wash them. Because if you don't wash them, and, you know, later when she get off her call or whatever, she like, you wash clothes? And you like, yeah. Oh, you didn't wash none of my clothes? No.
Sounds like this is getting kind of personal.
No, it's not. Kind of relatable. No, I'm just saying, like, but it brings up conversations that's easily can be avoided sometimes just by just simply communicating, right? No matter what aspect it is or what spectrum it is, I think just communicating in general is always a positive thing, right? Like, at work, we always talk about overly communication, because if you miscommunicate that one time when you don't want to bring something up, it can cause a ripple effect amongst a lot of different things, right? But I like, go ahead.
I mean, for those smaller things, it's definitely a by situation.
Yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
Right? Like, yeah. Go
Can
ahead.
I say?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt either of you. I'm over here like raising my hand.
No, you're fine.
I think that both of you are getting a little too into the small details that don't matter. But I think that a good thing to follow is communication is great, but in a relationship, yes, communication needs to be open 100%. However, you need to still maintain your independence. And I think really, like, you know, so for example, like, if what's a good example? I mean, Devon and I are just, we communicate really, really well.
Yeah.
And
so well that you can't even think of examples because it's that natural, right?
Well, I mean, for example, like, if I am struggling with something at work, if it's not affecting our relationship or how I'm acting towards him, I'm not going to tell him that, you know, right. I'm going to try and resolve it. That's also how I was raised, though. I was raised that, you know, if I have a problem with something, I try to fix it myself first, and then I go ask for help. Now, if it's something within your relationship, obviously work it out together and communicate. But, like, in my independence, in my individual life, if I have a situation and I can't resolve it myself, then I'll go ask for help, and then I'll go, you know, ask for his guidance, because he is my person and I'm going to ask for his guidance if I think that I need it. But, like, maintain that level of independence and don't completely ever lean on that person. You know what I mean? So I think that is kind of a good guideline for
if you were raised like kind of to keep it at work, to deal with it at work, if you had like a really bad day because of something at work, do you ever come home and just kind of vent to him just to help you feel better?
Yeah, always vent to. I mean, I don't think venting is a bad thing,
right?
You know, but don't let it affect the relationship. Now, if something happened at work and you're like, oh, I'm really going to be in a terrible mood when I get home, probably tell that person, you know, don't just come home and say, oh no, I have to keep that shit at work. Sorry, can I curse?
Yeah.
Okay. don't just keep that shit at work and then come home and act like a dick because you had a bad day at work.
Okay, that's too many swear words.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, but like, you know, keep the small stuff at work that, you know, doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect anything, but.
Yeah, I agree to that. I think a lot of times I found myself getting into situations that pertained from work experience that kind of like made me feel super shitty. You probably know, and you know too. But like it's really hard sometimes, but it's always so nice when you come home and you know you got something unexpectedly there, whether that's food, whether that's, you know, love or appreciation or something to make that shitty day feel positive, right? It's something to go home with a negative and then you go home and there's another negative, and then after that you're just like, bro, whatever, right? Super nonchalant, and you know it sucks, right? It just makes you just feel like towards that.
I also think that this is just a small little touch on this first real quick, but I think a lot of times, especially like in the past, which it's gotten a lot better in our generation, but I think men are expected to not talk about their feelings, and that whole kind of like, you know, I go to work and I come home and it's two completely different worlds. But I think that can really hinder a relationship and break it, honestly.
It definitely can, if especially if, I mean, again, it can also depend on the person, because I do know there are people out there who, if you now as shallow as this may be, there are people like this. If you open up and seem really vulnerable, they could see you as weak, and they'll be like, oh, I need a man who can keep his shit together and protect me, or essentially, or vice versa, right? Now obviously there are the ones who who seems, I'm sure you are very, welcoming of his emotions and his feelings,
I am.
So that's definitely a positive thing to.
I agree. Like, I definitely agree. Like how, or is another thing to make sure you trust your partner to have those openly feelings, because if you don't, then you're gonna have to find those feelings somewhere else, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And that's cause an issue within itself, but it kind of sucks because you can't go to your person and voice this like true feeling,
right?
Because things like that, you're like if somebody told me like I need you to be strong and this is and that, I would look at them and completely laugh, but inside I know I'd be hurt, but I definitely would break up with that person, because one, I can provide for myself and I can do all these things that I want to achieve in life with somebody that will accept me for crying for a hard day at work or whatever the case is. Like, I feel we are men, right? Like she said, like we live in a society that sometimes we struggle on like how to voice that and how to express that. I have no problem expressing my true feelings
without seeming like a pussy, right?
Right.
Like,
if you call me a pussy, I'm gonna beat that ass. I'm just kidding. But like personally, I have no problem with that. Like, I know people are like very hard because men don't have feelings, this and that. You gotta be a hard hat, put your hard hat on, and go to work and do all this stuff, and don't show any weaknesses. Blah blah blah. We are way past those times, and I always trying to encourage you. And like when we was going through that one thing when we worked together at Teva, it was like I said, like I was super proud of you because you opened those feelings towards me and showed that to me. And that's not easy within itself, right? But you have people that will never speak to you about that and hold all that pressure and weight on themselves, and then one day you just see them fold and crash, and you're like, yo, where did that come from?
They kind of blow up. It builds up, and then
it's just like a bomb that goes off, and it hurts me as a friend if one of my friends go through that and they never felt like they could tell me because they felt like I would make fun of them or anything like that. Like, it's one thing to have jokes about whatever, but I know when to like turn it in and tune it in to make sure my friends know that I'm here for them, like regardless of what's going on. Like you can call me and I'll pick you up and we can go on a drive, whatever the case is, get your mind free and all those things. But sometimes people just can't do that, right?
Right.
Like depending on where your mental and emotional state is, you just need one day to cool. But I'm the type of friend to knock on your door and like do that stuff. Like Reese, I was like super bummed. I forgot what I was doing. But this is why I cherish people like this in my life. Is my man brought a Pecky pen that he gave us at Amazon. Brought me 2 Powerade sugar free and some Takis and left them on my door and wrote a note in his car, all scribble handwriting and all that stuff. But it was just that effort to make me feel better that made me feel like ultimately better. Not the situation, not what was happening, but that right there just made me ultimately just feel wonderful, right? Like it's the little things that just matter so much. And that's why I will go, the full extent that I possibly can for all my friends, my true friends, right? So
yeah, you actually reminded me about that when we were doing security together.
Yeah.
So I was talking to this girl online. She's from
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
We dated for a few months and things just went bad and I was hurt. I was really hurt. It was like 20 degrees outside and I was going on walks around the building because like patrolling because we were security, but I'd be doing like 5-6 walks around the building just because I couldn't handle the anxiety, the sadness that things ended the way they did. So now when it comes to once you've established a solid relationship, you guys are in it several months, however long, how do you guys think a proper relationship, communication aside, because I feel like we've definitely dug into that enough, maintain a solid relationship?
You want me to go first or you got it?
You can go first.
I would say she probably was going to bring this up, but to make sure you incorporate dates. Make it fun. Don't make it so chill and relaxing. Be spontaneous with stuff. Like, make it a little rizzle razzle here and there. But like, if you're just like constantly in a straight line in relationship, it's going to die out sooner than you think, right? And to be honest, majority of relationship probably dies out, but people always incorporate different things to help spice their relationship up to keep that up there, right? Like that's the one thing that happens. Like you said, majority of relationships just don't work out. Probably 9 times out of 10, people just don't want to keep doing stuff, or they don't be spontaneous, don't go on trips. Like, it's stuff that we as humans know that what we need and what we want, and we know what gets us there, right? And it's our job as partners to make sure we do that the best of our abilities for our partners, right? And being on a common ground, like, hey, if you're not, like, yo, like, babe, I'm bored, let's go do something. And you say, I don't want to do nothing, right? But if you say, all right, let's go do something, that's, all right, let's go drive, let's go to Target or whatever. Just like go around and go do something, get out the house. Like, I love that she brings up, let's get out the house and like, let's go do all these things because, I be getting off work or I be like feeling super chill. And let's say, I'm about to go into work the next day and we've been in the house and like making dinner and all that stuff, but not really going outside and like being together. And like, we do this one thing, like, we just talk to each other, put our phones down, put laptops down, turn off the games, like all that stuff, and just like engage in true conversations, like whether that's like about our feelings, about goals, about, how do you view this, that, whatever problem is going on in today's society, we talk about. And I never really done that, and it was like very like changing because I felt more appreciated in that aspect, right? Asking my opinion, like putting everything around, no distractions, like you're actively listening. And you're not thinking of how you're going to respond. You're actually listening to what I'm saying, right? Like, I think a lot of people confuse that stuff and, like, already be like, yeah, I know what I'm about to say, right? Like, not really listening to what the context of that conversation or the meanings behind my words and stuff like that. So,
yeah, it's crazy. Like, one thing I feel like nobody should do is change themselves into someone of less value for someone else. And, like, kind of, I'm going to give you an example because I did that several years ago. I was in a relationship for 2 years, and she was just somebody who wouldn't like to go out. Like we were very different in that sense. Like, I loved going out, trying new things, whatever it was. She was someone who always wanted to just hang at home, watch movies and cuddle, right? Or just sit there, play video games and cuddle or whatever. And it got to like, I'd even be like, hey, do you want to go hiking? We haven't, done anything outside in a while, and it's kind of getting warm. And she's like, no, I don't like hiking. Oh, I don't want to go outside. I don't like doing outdoor stuff, Yeah. And I realized I had started changing myself to the point where I stopped liking going out because she made me comfortable just being inside and almost uncomfortable to go out just based on her feelings about it, right? And especially because I'm a very impressionable person. I'm very, what would you call it? I like, oftentimes I can take people's mannerisms, their, different stuff like that. And so I feel like I was slowly turning into like a version of her that was, it really wasn't myself. Yeah. And it even affected a lot of my friendships and even like my relationships with my own family, because I just almost just completely stopped seeing them for the most part, talking to them. And after I got out of that relationship, after things happened, I realized, wow, I've become a really different person in a negative way. And that's because I had changed myself to match her her bubble, I guess you could say.
I totally forgot something with the previous question you asked. Also, family. That is very important when it comes to, I would say, a stable relationship. Also, putting in the effort to get to know your partner's family, and not just keeping it into, like, family reunions or, like, family gatherings. I think it's good to build that cohesion, just so it feel genuine and not, like, fake or whatever the case is. So
yeah. I think that we should touch on that in a second, but I want before I forget what I wanted to say, I think that's a really good point. And I think that comes back to setting those expectations and like really going deep when you first meet someone. Yeah. I think a lot of people are really afraid to like talk about deep stuff and like, put it all out there when they first meet someone, because they're like, oh, well, what if they don't like me? Well, what if they don't like you?
And if they don't, then how do you think
you're
it's going to be?
Strangers, so like just like
months
let
down
it go,
the road when you do get deep like that,
exactly.
Then they're not going to like you then, like you said, right?
Exactly. And so I think that the whole like, I mean, for example, you and that girl, you had some pretty insane differences, like that were night and day. You like to go out. She did like to stay home all the time. If you would have, which I'm not saying you made any mistakes, because, I think everyone makes mistakes, and definitely. You probably wouldn't take that experience away because you learned a lot from it, right? So I think going forward, I think that it's really, really important to have like some core things similar to your person, because that kind of, I think having things in common, which I don't think you should have everything in common.
Right.
I think
get annoying.
Yeah, but like having some like your core values and beliefs and kind of big things in common, that can set you up for success in a relationship. Because I have seen so many people, like my best friend, for example, she dated someone for 3.5 years. She actually, she's my roommate. She moved out here for her ex-boyfriend. Her ex-boyfriend moved out here before her. They did long distance for like 1.5 years, and then she came out here. But it was kind of similar to your situation. She is just a social butterfly. She loves to go out. She loves to go party. She loves to meet new people. And, she will make friends with every person in the room. But her ex liked to stay in all the time. And he would never go out with her. And that totally got in between them, because she would constantly want to, and, she would, stay in with him, but she would ask him to go out and he would say no. And that was something that she really loved. So, for example, with us, I think something that set us up for success is when we first started dating, our first date, we went to a coffee shop and we talked for like 3 or 4 hours
at the
straight.
coffee shop.
At the coffee shop. It actually closed. And we realized that we were the last ones in there and the people were putting the chairs on the tables. But that's when you set those expectations and say, oh yeah, we have the same, political beliefs. Yeah. Oh yeah, we have the same religious beliefs. We have the same, we have in common that we both like to kind of stay in but go out occasionally, you know? So I think that's where you really set up for success is to have those kind of core things in common.
Definitely.
And I don't think in that conversation I ever felt like my bad, Rob calling. You gotta wait. I never felt uncomfortable discussing that, right? Like, I think at a certain point when you know exactly what you want in life, those conversations are natural, and you should expect to have those conversations when dating somebody or when you want to date somebody, right? Not dating to have fun, but date to establish like a foundation, right? And I think that was like the biggest difference because we both understood that, and we set that level of expectations with one another. And in my previous relationships, I don't think I really went that far into setting expectations, right? Like I kind of, like you said, kind of started feeling a difference in myself, and then I had to relearn and gain that inner self again, but also now set these core values of what I'm not like changing, what I'm not wavering or anything like that. That I'm like social, like I love like, and not going out and all that stuff, but I love enjoying getting to know people, but also getting to know them for who they truly are, right? Like we are vulnerable in some states and things like that. But those conversations, I really appreciated that. Like I think I called him and I told him like, bro, she's so pretty, bro. We talked for 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was, for the first time ever, I felt so good to have that conversation and not feel the pressure of life or anything on my shoulders. It just was a natural conversation.
Bro, after that first day when you called me, you were like, bro, oh my God, bro. I'm telling you, man, this girl, bro. But no, yeah, when I match with people on Tinder or just any dating app, if we get into the like, oh, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah.
If they say, because I've gotten this a lot. If they say, oh, I'm kind of boring. I don't really like to do much. I like to stay in. I'm like, all right, then we're not going to get along.
Yeah.
Like, that's just.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, personally. I really don't. I think, for me, anyways, and I think after Devon will always be a Bumble person. I think that Bumble is great.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think there's a certain culture around, like, Tinder, and that's kind of, like, for, like, hookups or whatever. I've never been on Tinder, but that's what I've heard. Because before I met Devon on Bumble, I told myself, my whole life I've been, like, I will never meet someone online. I want to, like, meet someone organically, like, at a grocery store and, like, touch the apple at the same time. Super romantic.
Don't worry, we tested Bumble on the same time.
But no, in the 21st century, it's, oh, we touched like at the exact
same time. Oh, my God. He swiped on me and I swiped on him. No, but something that I really like about Bumble, which is what I did, because going into it, I had... So earlier this year, before we met, like a year ago, I broke up with my ex, and that was a pretty shitty situation. And then at the beginning of this year, I had gone through a pretty traumatic event that kind of reshaped my whole life. And I kind of was at this place where I was like, okay, I know what I want. This is what I want. Now how do I get there,
Right.
And I was really trying to work on myself before, because I had, I've had my share of really crappy relationships. I've never had a great relationship until Devon. But
well, actually, I don't think we haven't actually mentioned how you guys did meet, though. We haven't actually mentioned it.
Well, this is a great segue.
Okay.
So, before him, I really was trying to work on myself. And I was like, okay, I'm a very introverted person. Like, unless my roommate Lauren drags me out, I'm not going to go out, unless I go to the grocery store.
Wasn't it you that was dragging Devon to the club that one night, though?
Just listen. Well, and so, it's true, though. I'm very, very introverted.
Well, the reason behind that is because I work all the weekends, and it was gonna be my last Saturday off.
Yeah, it was the last Saturday off until next year. Yeah. So I was like, we have to go out.
Peak season.
So anyways, I was really working on myself, and I was like, okay, I know what I want. I had actually, it's kind of crazy. I might sound crazy. I don't know, but if I do, it's okay. I made a list. I sat down and I was like, okay, I think I was like listening to someone's YouTube or podcast or some girl talking about relationships. And she said, go through every single person that you've ever been with. Write down qualities about them, things about your relationship that you liked, what you didn't like, how you guys interacted with each other, everything. So I literally I don't know if you even know this.
I don't.
Uh-oh.
I sat down one day and I wrote down all of the people that I have been with.
I think I do know
what
this.
they were like, all of that kind of stuff. And then I looked for similarities. Because obviously none of those relationships had worked out.
Right.
And I noticed a lot of similarities in the way that they acted, in the way that they treated me. There were, it was a pattern, essentially. Which, I don't know what I was thinking. But anyways, I made this list. And I really looked at it. And then I was like, and also I highlighted things that I liked. And I highlighted the things that I didn't like and that were bad. There were not very many things that I liked. But then after that little exercise, I made a list of things that I want in a person. Now, when you're making, even if it's a mental list or whatever, I think people a lot of times are extremely unreasonable. Because no one is perfect. You're never going to find someone that's perfect. But anyways, I made a list of things that were my non-negotiables, like things that I really want. Like I really want to have a family, you know. And then I made in that list I had, kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like values that person would have. Such and such and such. So I made my list. And then I told myself, okay, now that I have my list, I know what I want. I know what I don't want. I'm just going to kind of like focus on myself. And because I need to be a good person to someone else. So I was like, okay, no, I'm not going to meet anyone organically. So I think I might try out Bumble because I'd heard good things about it. Not so much of the hookup culture. And I was like, okay, I really just want to get some free dinner. I was like, honestly, I'm just going to go on a bunch of dates and like kind of like experiment, see like what kind of person I like, what kind of person I don't like. And so I went on quite a few dates, probably less than 10, but like probably like 5 or 6 maybe. I went on these dates. And they were all so horrible.
Oh, no.
Now, don't get me wrong. I got a couple free drinks, got a couple free meals, but they were just so bad. And there's a really funny story about one of them. I think it was actually maybe like the second or third date that I went on.
Yeah, that you told me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me just, okay, hold on. Let me say, I eventually went on a date with Devon, and it was like the easiest thing that I've ever done. We talked and sat and talked for hours, and then we just kept going on dates. Now, that's the other thing. Go on a bunch of dates before you commit to that person.
Right.
And now, I don't know if we really want to get like super into this part, but everyone's different. But in my past, I have been, I'm not, let me just say I'm not a religious person at all. And I don't like, believe in waiting till marriage for sex or anything like that.
Right.
So before it wasn't really a big deal to me to wait to have sex.
Elayna's parents, you hear this?
Sex, everybody.
Well,
so,
that was not.
I know, I'm probably like turning red, blushing. No, but that wasn't really a big deal to me, honestly. And it didn't get me to very good places in my life. But Devon, we waited to have sex. And we went on a lot of dates, like genuine dates, like not just like, oh, I went over and hung out,
watch Netflix.
Yeah, no, we literally went on dates
And I think,
out in public that would allow us to get to know each other.
I think also it was like different like scenes too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Went on a hike, right? Talked on a hike. Then went to a park, just sat down at a park on a blanket, got to know each other. Went to the coffee shop, right? And then I think we went to get sushi, like multiple different like environments, just to see exactly who that person are in those environments, so that you can know what you're committing to, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a big thing to know those things, because if you don't get them in those environments, you're like, whoa, hell, I ain't never seen this, right? Like seriously, right? Like I don't think in my previous relationships I went on that many dates or like got to truly know that person like for what it was to the full extent, right? Like I don't know, I'm just like so glad it worked out that way, that we actually agreed on that stuff and we was very mature about it, and happy.
Yeah, it was a solid 2 months before we like started officially dating.
Yeah.
So for 2 whole months we went on dates constantly.
Well, you know what's funny about that is when I was talking to Devon, he was like, "Bro, we're taking it so slow," and I think I actually had met you before you guys made it official.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I think
sure.
so.
And I remember, I think I asked you, I was like, "So do you see yourself getting serious with her in like 6 months?" And you were like, "I don't know, man. Like we're going pretty slow."
Yeah.
And then 2 months later, you
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, and
but
I mean,
it's-
like, for me, that was really slow, you know? And I'm also the kind of person where I used to, like, you know, I would, like, fall fast. Really
that's
fast.
that's exactly
Well,
how
yeah,
I
that's
am.
what you
I
told me
fall
though.
really
like
fast.
you was honest and like
Yeah,
upfront about that.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, I really, you know, in my past, I fall really fast, and I want to do it right this time. And I really made that clear with him. I was like, I really am looking for my person. Like, I'm going to be 24 in December, which I'm still young. I'm still really young. But I also am the kind of person that, like, you know
what you want.
Know what I want. I know what I want, and I don't really, like, feel the need to, like, wait a really long time. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
So do you feel like you've found?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, whoa.
I would like. I think my biggest thing that, you know, when I think about it, just bring like a nice little like happy tear in my eye is, it was one night we sat home, obviously, whatever, but we danced in the living room, listened to R&B music for like 2 hours, talked about life. It was like one of the most calming moments in my entire life that felt so real. Like it was real, obviously, but it just felt so nice, and like I just can't even explain it because it just felt so good for me. And I appreciate you. Like, you know, I tell you all the time, but changed my life for the better and for like who I want to be and where I want to be in life and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I appreciate you.
I love you.
I love you too.
No, but I was going to say, I don't think people should expect it to be like perfect though, because for me, and I know this wasn't on Devon's side because I'm just amazing, but no, I'm kidding. No, but before we started dating, there was a time period, like a few weeks, a good like 2-3 weeks, where I was gonna stop talking to him.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, I was gonna stop talking
Tell
to
him
him.
why.
I thought he was too nice.
That is.
I genuinely thought he was too nice.
You know what? I think he did mention
did
that
tell
you
her.
thought you were too nice, but I didn't think it was like that serious. Where
No,
you're gonna stop
genuinely.
talking
I told my sister, I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna, because I had gone to Wyoming, and for drill, I'm in the National Guard. And
to him. Is that when you were like gone for like almost a month?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was in May. We had met in April. That was in May. Yeah. So before, like a couple weeks leading up to me leaving to go back to Wyoming for my annual training, I just like, I was like, this is weird. Like, he's really nice. Like, so, like, there's nothing, not a mean bone in his body. Like, he was just too nice. I was like, this is weird. Then I did some self-reflection, and I was like, dang, that's some trauma speaking, because I was so used to people treating me like shit, and that was what I thought love was. Like, someone treating me like shit, someone fighting with me, someone, you know, saying horrible things to me, that's because they cared and that because they loved me. No, honey, it's not. They're just a piece of shit. No, but I genuinely wanted to stop talking to him. And then my sister and I had a conversation. She was like, that would be a huge mistake. Like, he's amazing. And he is.
You better thank her sister, bro.
Oh, Shaylee?
Oh my
Shout
gosh,
out
don't
to
let her
Shaylee.
hear that. She
Shout out to
literally
Shaylee.
says all the time, do you know this? She says all the time, she's like, I'm the reason why you guys are together.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's like, if it weren't for me, you would have stopped talking to him.
I'll send this to her.
Good,
I got
good.
She's probably
Yeah.
going to send her to her and like, hey, we did a podcast episode.
Yeah, but yeah, it don't expect it to be perfect because I think there's waves to things. Like
Absolutely.
even though we work so well together and he's amazing and I know that deep in my soul that he's my person and I love him to death, it's not perfect.
Dude,
you know?
how you talking him up? I'm about to like, yo, hey, yo.
But also, the other thing I was gonna say with that is it shouldn't be like there's a happy medium because even though I was having those thoughts, I still never. It's kind of weird to explain. Even though I was like, I think I should stop talking to him. He's just too nice. It's weird. I couldn't stop talking to him, like subconsciously. Like,
did you try it all? Like at every point where you're like, I'm gonna stop. I'm not.
Yes. And I just for some reason like I didn't have any control. I could not
You're
stop.
like, you know what? I'm not even gonna respond to his message for a couple days.
Yeah.
No.
He would ask to hang out. I had ample opportunities to stop talking to him, but he would ask to hang out. I'd be like, yeah, like no questions asked. And it's so weird because before we started dating, in that little time period where I was unsure, my mom and my stepdad were driving through Utah.
We actually met.
And without even thinking about it, I was like, I'm going to invite him to dinner. I was like, do you want to go to dinner with me and my mom and my stepdad? And he was like,
no.
sure. And at that dinner, like he like wasn't around us for a second. And I told my stepdad, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get back to him. But like, I just didn't stop. I just couldn't stop. I don't know. So.
I just realized you guys got matching shoes.
No, we don't. She has the different.
Oh, they're slightly
They're
different.
Basically,
literally
he
the
actually
same.
got these for me. So
These are the same shoes. What are you talking about?
they're
they're
both
not.
Jordans, but mine have like
The tan. Look at
the
the tan.
tan.
Check out the tan swipe.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're the same.
Yeah. No, they're the same.
Before I forget, can I tell you that like funny story about when before I met him? So I was on the Bumble app, and I went on this date with this guy, which not gonna rag on the guy, like he was fine, but it was just a horrible date, like horrible date. We actually went to like an arcade type situation. And it was just the most dry conversation. Like, I felt like I was, like, constantly, like, trying to, like, fight for a conversation. And, like, he would only talk about himself. And, like, he actually, like, didn't have great hygiene. So, went on that date. Never talked to him again. A couple weeks later, Devon and I had met. And he invited me to one of his football games. So I was standing up there in the stands watching him play football. It was like towards the beginning of the game. And then I like look over and there's another player walking onto the football field. And I was like, I went on a date with that guy.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So this guy was on Devon's team.
I was his coach.
He was his coach.
Were you guys friends?
No.
Okay.
No, we was not.
Yeah, I thought it was really
Even
funny
if we
though.
was, I have.
That's so funny. What are the odds? Like,
I know,
actually,
yeah,
what
no,
are the odds?
exactly.
Because that was like 30, 40 minutes
Yeah.
south, wasn't
Yeah.
that?
Mhm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I was like shook. And I thought it was really funny. But after the game, I was like, okay, this is kind of gonna kind of show me like his like sense of humor. And I was like, you'll never guess what happened. And he thought it was really funny too. So I was like, okay.
He tried to come on the field, and I was like, no, get off the field. Even though I did not know anything that was going on pertaining to that situation.
It
He
was
came
really
late. He was like unorganized, and I was like, dude, you think you can come in here and play? You got all these kids here. No, you can go back.
Got that stink ass breath.
But yes, like it was very funny. I'm pretty sure he probably saw us, but just for like relationships in general, I think it's very important to be honest and transparent, set expectations, and always just be yourself, right?
Yeah.
And no way or shape or form did I ever waver my personality when I met her. She appreciated me and loved me for exactly who I am when I wake up every day. And, you know, that's all you can ever ask for, right? Because once you start to pick that face on or put the mask on of hiding your identity, then when those hard days come and you are who you really are, that person don't love you. They love the mask that you was at that time, right? So it's always good to make sure it feels genuine and, like, you know, honest. So
That's very well put. I could not have said that better myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been single for 3 years, so
Yeah.
I couldn't have. But you know, it's actually one thing real quick before we kind of start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
What I find so interesting and beautiful about specifically breakups is most people suddenly strive for self-improvement after a breakup. I mean, they might have their period of just self-loathing and sadness and maybe eating a little too much, watching too much TV, whatever, you know, however they're coping.
Yeah.
But then there's always that moment where they're like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to start eating healthy. Almost, I feel like it's almost as a form of revenge. You know what I mean? Like, not in the negative sense though, because I've always been a believer in success is the best form of revenge. You know, and so if you're showing you're successful mentally, physically, and maybe even financially, it's like it drives people. You know,
I wouldn't say revenge, because if you go into something trying to get revenge, then you not
sustainable.
I definitely agree. When, you know, you go through a breakup, you're trying to find that, you know, rekindle that person, that fire, that anger, whatever it is, to get you back motivated. But I think it just depends on the heartbreak too. It, like, sometimes it's really hard to recoup, or, you know, things like that. But when you understand your value as a person and you finally gain that courage to speak out, like, yo, I'm done, it's very easy to transcend into something else, if that makes sense.
I think it's just naturally a very transformative time, because, I mean, you're naturally going through something very drastic, and it either naturally forces you to either change or stay the same. And, like, I mean, everyone's different, but some people, it will make them think, okay, I want to be better. Maybe they were the person who, or, you know, both parties are usually involved in why the relationship didn't work out.
Right.
Yeah.
But some people would say, oh, this is making me want to treat my next person way better, or I want better.
I want to be a better person for the next person.
Yeah. And also for yourself. I mean, that was, like, for me, my last relationship, that made me realize how much more I wanted for myself, you know? And, like, I was not having a lot of self-respect. So my kind of transformative time was a lot of, like, internal work, which is, I personally think that is why I found Devon, because if I wouldn't have done all of that personal work inside, he's not someone who I would have gone for, because I would have gone for someone toxic and who was treating me like shit, because I thought that was what, you know, I deserved.
Yeah. I would have been, you know, I can put it on my face. It's toxic.
No, thanks.
No, I'm just, you know me for so long. Like, I'm just super outgoing, and I just have an infectious personality. I just love life for what it gives me, no matter if it's hardships, no matter if it's the positive, but I love it for the negative, just like as I would love it for the positive. Is, you know, I am glad that I met you. I'm glad I met you too, Reese. Obviously, I'm glad to meet her more. Just because the long-term goal for me and her.
The longevity.
Yeah, and no, same for our friendship and things like that. Like, you know, you helped me through my transition on everything that happened to me. And you hold me down like no other, and I appreciate it. And, you know, I think when it comes to being in relationships and establishing those, like, friendships and, like, relationships, like, it's good to have those solid pieces that you know that not moving, if that makes sense.
Can I just add a little snippet real quick? My last little blurb. I think that your person, and I think this kind of, like, relates to everything, but
Oh, just moving the mic.
I think if, like, your person, you will be able to be vulnerable with them and communicate with them and feel safe with them.
Yep.
And if you don't feel those things, they're not your person. I think a lot of people try to force someone being their person, but if you're having those issues, if you cannot be vulnerable with them, or you cannot talk with them about things openly, and you don't feel safe with them, that is not your person. And maybe it's not the right time. Maybe you have some self-growth to do, and maybe they do as well. But at the moment, that is not your person.
Right. And that's definitely, it can be very difficult to even think like that, because you really do like them, right? But I really want to thank you for coming on. I hope you enjoyed your first. Was this your first podcast you've ever done? That's awesome.
So fun. And, it's really fun.
One of Devon's last. He's got one or two more, but the
next couple weeks or so, I'll probably just be more focused on moving and getting all that stuff. I might can do another one when I come back. We will be probably going to Denver together, and then going to go look at apartments and stuff like that. So
I just thought of one more thing I wanted to say.
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
A little snippet.
No, you're good. You're good.
I just wanted to say, because I wanted to say this earlier, but we got distracted talking about something else.
Yeah.
To sustain a relationship, you have to try every day, because the moment you stop trying, that's when it stops.
So ultimately, I think kind of back on the maintaining a relationship, because I forgot I wanted to say this as well. I feel like ultimately it comes down to, rather than trying to maintain what you have, always strive to always try to improve it.
Be flexible. Life is ever changing, and that means your relationship is ever changing.
Yeah.
So for us, the person that he is right now is not who he's going to be in 10 years, 5 years, even 2 years maybe, you know?
2 months.
2 months. So, and same with me, same with you. So you have to be flexible with that person. You can't expect the person to stay the same your whole life.
Why would you want them to stay the same your whole life? Why don't you want to see them grow and improve?
Life is always ever changing, so you have to be flexible. You have to move through it together and just, try to remain as together as possible. And obviously you're going to go through ups and downs, and there's going to be outside things that affect it. Like, I was just talking to my sister the other day, and she's been married for I think 4 or 5 years now, and they have a baby who is
Harper
2.5. She's the greatest. I love her. But we were talking about something, and she's like, oh yeah, like having a kid completely transforms your relationship, like completely, like on its head. So you just have to be ever changing, flexible, and just keep trying. Like, you have to choose to try for your person.
For sure. Definitely. And yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking through with the episodes you did. Yeah. And where can they find you if you want them following you on social media?
Yeah, sure. Well, can you spell my name out in the show notes or something? Because
everything will be in the description.
Okay, because my name is hard. It's what is my Instagram?
I think it's
at Elayna R. Hickson.
Yes.
So.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to say to everybody that always constantly comes in every week to listen, also the new listeners, that I appreciate you guys, from last year to this transition into this year to this new season, and also with the 801 Underground. Appreciate you guys constantly for showing support to myself and Reese. And I'm definitely going to miss you guys as this thing starts to transition into the new co-hosts and things like that. But I will try to frequently check in here and there as I possibly can as I transition into my new role for my new job. And thank you so much. There's always love and appreciation.
And we'll be announcing that new co-host soon. I don't want to reveal him yet. But anyways, if you guys want to follow the podcast, it's just out at Reese's on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook. If you guys enjoyed, why not drop a like, subscribe, follow, wherever it is you're listening at. I hope you have a great day, night, evening. Thanks again for coming on, guys.
Yeah, of course. See you guys.
Peace.